In Washington, D.C., the ongoing government shutdown has taken an unprecedented and startling turn. The Trump administration has begun mass permanent layoffs of federal workers, and sources say one of the first and hardest hit targets is the small but crucial office that oversees special education for the entire country. This move has effectively decimated the staff responsible for ensuring services for millions of American children with disabilities, leaving their future support in question. To understand what's happening, we first need to look at the government shutdown that began on October 1, 2025. When Congress and the White House failed to agree on a funding plan, the federal government essentially closes its doors to non-essential work. Typically, this means workers are put on furlough. Think of it as a temporary unpaid leave. Employees are sent home, but they are still government employees and usually receive back pay once the shutdown ends. This time is different. On Friday, October 10th, the White House announced it was initiating a reduction in force, or RIF. An RIF is not a temporary furlough. It is a permanent layoff. It's a move rarely, if ever, seen during a shutdown. The White House had directed agencies to prepare these RIF plans, with President Trump calling the shutdown an opportunity to advance his long-stated goal of shrinking the federal government. The Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought, a key architect of the policy plan known as Project 2025, confirmed the move on social media, stating simply, "The RIFs have begun." Initial court filings revealed that at least 4,100 federal employees across 7 agencies received layoff notices. One of the most severely impacted agencies is the U.S. Department of Education. It lost 466 employees, which is over 20% of its remaining staff, a staff already cut by nearly half in previous layoffs. Within that department, sources say one office has effectively been wiped out. The Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services, known as OSERS. According to the union representing agency employees, nearly every single staff member below the leadership level in that office was fired. This isn't just an obscure government bureau. OSERS is the nerve center for federal support for people with disabilities of all ages.
Its primary and most critical function is administering the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. First passed in 1975, IDEA is the landmark federal law that guarantees a free, appropriate public education for all children with disabilities. It ensures that students get the support they need, from individualized learning plans to classroom aids. To make this happen, the federal government provides about $15 billion a year to states and school districts. The staff at OSERS are the people who manage that money. They provide guidance to states, conduct oversight to ensure schools are complying with the law, and serve as the ultimate backstop for the civil rights of over 7 million students. With those employees now gone, a senior education department staffer expressed deep uncertainty about how these vital programs can even continue to function. Disability advocates have stated they are extremely concerned about the immediate impact on services. So, why is this happening? The administration states it is using the layoffs as a tool to pressure Democrats to end the shutdown on its terms. The shutdown itself is rooted in a political deadlock over issues like funding for Affordable Care Act subsidies. President Trump has explicitly said the layoffs would be Democrat-oriented, blaming the opposing party for the stalemate. This action is also consistent with the goals of Project 2025, a detailed policy blueprint developed by the Heritage Foundation and other conservative groups. OMB Director Russell Vought was a key author of the plan, which calls for dismantling or restructuring federal agencies, including the Department of Education, and replacing career civil servants with political loyalists to consolidate power within the White House. The move has been met with fierce opposition. Federal employee unions have filed a lawsuit to block the firings, calling them an illegal abuse of power and disgraceful. Democratic leaders have labeled the action as deliberate chaos, arguing the administration is choosing to inflict pain rather than being forced into it. The firings have also drawn criticism from some Republicans. Senator Susan Collins, for example, warned that arbitrary layoffs result in a lack of sufficient personnel needed to conduct the mission of the agency. The consequences could be immediate and far-reaching.
With the staff who administer IDEA funding now gone, there are serious questions about how $15 billion in aid will be managed and distributed. Federal oversight, which former officials have called a critical layer for protecting students' rights, is now severely crippled. The impact extends beyond special education. The Office for Civil Rights, which investigates discrimination complaints, and the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, which oversees grants for low-income schools, have also seen mass layoffs, further incapacitating a department already stretched thin. As the political battle continues in Washington, an unprecedented action has created deep instability at the heart of the nation's education system. For now, the federal government's ability to support its most vulnerable students hangs in the balance, leaving millions of families and educators across the country in a state of profound uncertainty.
In an emergency meeting, the faculty of one of America's top universities has voted to condemn a controversial proposal from the Trump administration. The story involves a high-stakes offer of federal money and, in exchange, demands for major changes to how universities operate, touching on everything from free speech to student admissions. Today, we explain the Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education and why it's causing a firestorm on college campuses. On October 1, 2025, the Trump administration sent a 10-page document to 9 of the nation's most prestigious universities. The list includes Vanderbilt, MIT, Brown, and 6 others. The document, titled The Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education, presents a deal. If the universities sign it, they are promised special access to federal funding, including significant grants and other perks like White House invitations. The administration has given the universities a deadline of November 21st to sign on. This offer, however, comes with a long list of conditions that would fundamentally change how these institutions function. One of the most controversial sections deals with speech. The compact would require faculty and employees to avoid taking public stances on social and political events unless those events directly affect the university. It also demands that universities prevent any speech that could punish, belittle, and even spark violence against conservative ideas. Critics, including the American Association of University Professors, have called this a direct assault on academic freedom, creating an environment of fear. Some faculty have compared it to loyalty oaths required during the Red Scare of the 1950s, arguing it puts academic independence under the control of the government. The proposed rules extend deep into campus life. The compact would cap the number of international undergraduate students at 15%. It would also forbid universities from considering sex, race, ethnicity, or gender identity when deciding on student admissions or financial aid. Furthermore, it would mandate that all applicants must take the SAT or ACT college entrance exams. The compact also seeks to enforce a strict, binary definition of gender as only male and female, which would apply to campus bathrooms, locker rooms, and sports teams.
Financially, the deal requires universities to freeze tuition for all United States students for 5 years. For the wealthiest institutions, it would mandate free tuition for students in hard science programs. The compact also addresses campus protests, committing universities to use lawful force if necessary to stop demonstrations that block access to buildings, and to enforce swift, serious, and consistent sanctions on anyone who violates these rules. This brings us to Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. Following student rallies and a petition signed by over 900 students and faculty, the Vanderbilt Faculty Senate held an emergency meeting on October 8th. In a decisive vote of 30 to 11, the Senate passed a resolution condemning the compact. The resolution calls the proposal a devil's bargain and urges the university's leadership to reject it entirely. The faculty argued that signing the agreement would be the opposite of Vanderbilt's core mission, would endanger the university's independence, and would likely violate the constitutional rights of its students and staff. Vanderbilt is not alone in its opposition. The faculty senates at the University of Virginia and the University of Arizona have passed similar resolutions, urging their administrations to reject the deal. So far, only one of the 9 universities has given a definitive answer. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, has officially and flatly rejected the compact. MIT's president, Sally Kornbluth, stated that the agreement was inconsistent with the university's mission. Meanwhile, the American Council on Education, a major higher education association, has called the proposal a Faustian bargain, a deal with the devil, and has urged all 9 universities to turn it down. For its part, the White House has framed the compact as an encouragement for universities to work with the administration. A press secretary stated the goal is to ensure free speech and prevent the kind of illegal protest behavior seen on campuses last year. Now, 9 of America's leading universities face a critical choice with a fast-approaching deadline. They must weigh the promise of substantial federal funding against what many faculty see as an unacceptable surrender of their core principles of independence and academic freedom. The Vanderbilt administration, like most of the others, says it is still carefully reviewing the proposal. The decisions these institutions make in the coming weeks could set a powerful precedent for the relationship between the U.S. government and higher education for years to come.
Hello and welcome to AITV News. In this segment, we're breaking down the latest major announcement on prescription drug prices from the Trump administration. On Friday, October 10, 2025, President Donald J. Trump announced a significant agreement with the British-based pharmaceutical giant AstraZeneca. This follows a similar deal struck with Pfizer just a week and a half earlier. The administration is promoting these agreements as a historic win for American patients, using a strategy called Most Favored Nation (MFN) pricing. So what exactly is Most Favored Nation pricing? The concept is straightforward. The United States should pay no more for a prescription drug than the lowest price paid by other comparable developed nations. For years, Americans have paid significantly more for the same medications than people in other wealthy countries, often nearly 3 times more. This initiative aims to close that gap. Let's look at the specifics of the new AstraZeneca deal. First, the company has agreed to offer its drugs to all state Medicaid programs at these lower, most favored nation prices. Medicaid is the government health program for low-income Americans, covering over 70 million people. The White House projects this will result in substantial savings. Second, the agreement guarantees that any new, innovative medicines AstraZeneca brings to the United States market will also be sold at this international benchmark price. A major part of this plan is a new government website called TrumpRx.gov, which is expected to launch in early 2026. AstraZeneca will list its primary care medications on this site. It's important to understand that TrumpRx won't sell drugs directly. Instead, it will act as a portal, referring users to platforms where they can buy medications directly from the company at a reduced cash price, completely outside of their insurance plan. AstraZeneca has pledged discounts of up to 80% for eligible patients on some drugs for chronic diseases purchased this way.
What does AstraZeneca get in return for these concessions? A very valuable incentive: a 3-year exemption from the threat of steep United States tariffs on imported pharmaceuticals. The administration had threatened tariffs of up to 100% on drug makers to pressure them into these kinds of agreements.
As part of the deal, AstraZeneca also committed to investing $50 billion in United States-based manufacturing and research and development, including a new $4.5 billion facility in Virginia. This deal with AstraZeneca didn't happen in a vacuum. It's modeled on a pact made with Pfizer on September 30th. Pfizer also agreed to most favored nation pricing for Medicaid and new drugs, participation in the Trump Rx website, and a $70 billion investment in United States operations. In exchange, Pfizer also received a 3-year exemption from the threatened tariffs. So the key question is, who will actually see savings from these deals? While the announcements sound transformative, many experts are skeptical about their broad impact. Analysts point out that the deals are primarily focused on 2 groups: state Medicaid programs and uninsured individuals who are willing and able to pay cash for their medicines through the new Trump Rx website. For the vast majority of Americans who have private health insurance through an employer or are covered by Medicare, these deals are not expected to directly lower their out-of-pocket costs at the pharmacy counter. Furthermore, experts note that Medicaid already receives significant drug discounts under a federal best price law. This law guarantees Medicaid the lowest price offered to any commercial payer in the United States. Because of this, the additional savings from the new most favored nation pricing might be limited. This has led some analysts to view the deals as a mutually beneficial arrangement. The president can claim a significant political victory on his promise to lower drug prices. Meanwhile, the pharmaceutical companies avoid potentially crippling tariffs by making price concessions in a smaller part of their market. As one expert from Boston University noted, the deal is good for the companies, but has very uncertain, if any, benefit for Americans struggling with the affordability of prescription drugs. Another analyst described the initial Pfizer deal as more optics than bite, pointing out that the company didn't change any of its financial guidance after the announcement. There is also a potential international consequence. Some economists warn that to level the playing field, drug companies might respond not just by lowering U.S. prices, but by raising their prices in other countries. This could shift the cost burden rather than eliminating it.
To sum it all up, the Trump administration has successfully used the threat of tariffs to secure agreements with Pfizer and AstraZeneca. These deals promise to lower drug prices for state Medicaid programs and for uninsured patients paying with cash. However, for most Americans with insurance, these agreements are unlikely to change what they pay for their prescriptions. In exchange for targeted price cuts, the drug companies have secured a 3-year shield from tariffs and are boosting their investments in the United States.